In the mid-10th century, a young king ascended to the English throne after the death of his much older half-brother, King Ethelstan. His name was Edmund, and at the age of just 18, he would have to fight for his throne as the Vikings sought to take back control of the northern territories of the kingdom. Edmund was born around the year 920 or 921. His father was Edward the Elder, King of Wessex, and his mother was Edward's third wife, Eadgifu, and Edmund was the eldest son. Her younger son and Edward's brother was called Eadred. Edmund and Eadred were very young boys at the time of their father's death in 924, and their much older half-brother Ethelstan, who was approximately 30 years old at the time, inherited the throne from their father. Both of the boys grew up at Ethelstan's court, and would witness the nature of war and politics from a very young age, as King Ethelstan fought to defend his own territories as well as expanding upon them. They also watched as Ethelstan united England and became the first king of all England. Edmund saw this firsthand at the Battle of Brunanburh in 937, as he fought alongside King Ethelstan when he was just 16 years old, where he and King Ethelstan succeeded in quelling the rebel Scottish and Viking forces. In 939, on the 27th of October, King Ethelstan died suddenly, and because Ethelstan had no children, the throne passed to Edmund, and he became King Edmund I. His coronation took place about a month later, on the 1st of December 939. At just 18 years old, King Edmund had the task of overseeing all of England, and holding on to all of the kingdom's Anglo-Saxon territories, but very soon his rule would be challenged, mainly in the northern kingdoms by the Vikings. His first challenge came in the form of Olaf Guthrithson, the King of Dublin, and his Viking forces. With the help of the Archbishop of York, Wulfstan, Olaf used King Ethelstan's death as an opportunity to recapture York at the end of 939. However, Olaf was not satisfied with merely capturing York, and a year later he would advance into northeastern Mercia by storming the ancient Mercian royal centre, Tamworth, to try and expand his Viking rule in England. Edmund responded by gathering his army, which on his return trip north encountered Olaf's Viking forces at Leicester. Thankfully, battle was avoided due to the intervention of the Archbishop of York, Wulfstan, on behalf of the Vikings, and the Archbishop of Canterbury on behalf of England. They ensured that both kings settled their disputes and came to an agreement in the form of a treaty. The treaty was negotiated at Leicester, and it compelled King Edmund to hand over the territories known as the Five Boroughs, which included Leicester, Lincoln, Nottingham, Stamford, and Derby. This was a huge step back for King Edmund, and the first major loss for the English since his father Edward the Elder began pushing back Viking conquests in the early 10th century. One stipulation in the treaty would work to King Edmund's advantage. When one of the two leaders died, the survivor would inherit the entire realm, and therefore become the King of England. Fortunately for King Edmund, in 941, Olaf died, which paved the way for him to retake the Five Boroughs in 942. This was considered a major victory for the English. At the same time as Olaf's challenge, Edmund faced threats in Wales, when the King of Gwynedd, Idwal withheld his fealty to the new king, possibly due to the Welsh king's support of Olaf Guthrithson. In 942, Idwal was killed in battle against Edmund's men, and another Welsh king, Welvar, took over the position and allied himself with the English crown, in an effort to increase his power in Wales. This meant Edmund managed to continue his status as overlord of the Welsh kings. To stop further invasions from the Vikings, King Edmund employed a tactic used by his father, which was to grant considerable territories in the Danelaw to prominent noblemen. Olaf Guthrithson's cousin, Anlaf Strixon, became the King of York when Olaf died. Anlaf most likely kept the title due to him being baptised, with King Edmund named as his godfather, possibly as a sign of acceptance of King Edmund's overlordship. In 944, Edmund now controlled all of England, since he had retaken every area that had been taken at the beginning of his rule. Edmund then forced Anlaf and the other Viking rulers out of York, and regained possession of the city with the assistance of the Archbishop of York, Wulfstan, who was previously in favour of the Vikings. Further north, in the kingdoms of Scotland and Strathclyde, it seems that Scotland's ruler, King Malcolm I, had allied himself and his province with the English, but Strathclyde, under the rule of Dunmail, allied himself with the Viking king of Dublin. Dunmail was killed in combat when King Edmund led an army of English and Welsh warriors up to Strathclyde in 945 and seized control of the area. In what was likely a peace treaty, Edmund granted the area to King Malcolm I of Scotland in exchange for Malcolm's military assistance. Throughout his reign, King Edmund upheld the relationships established further afield on the continent by his predecessor Aethelstan, primarily with his brother-in-law King Otto I of East Francia and his nephew King Louis IV of West Francia. In 945, the Danish Prince Harold abducted King Louis and handed him over to Hugh the Great, Duke of the Franks, who held him as a prisoner. Edmund and Otto had to intervene on his behalf. Hugh the Great refused to free Louis until he was granted the town of Laon, despite demands from Edmund and Otto. The pair eventually agreed to Hugh the Great's terms, and King Louis IV was restored to the throne. King Edmund also continued much of his half-brother's administrative, judicial and educational legacy. Under Edmund's leadership, academic activity flourished as a result of the resurgence of Latin and a considerable rise in the production of Welsh books. He also advanced the English Benedictine reform, the major religion at the time. During his reign, Edmund married twice. His first wife was Elfgifu of Shaftesbury, and they had 3 children together, 2 sons, Edwig and Edgar, and 1 daughter called Eadgifu. Edmund's first wife died in 944 and was buried at Shaftesbury Abbey. Edmund's second wife was Ethelfled, but the couple had no known children. At the age of 25, King Edmund's reign came to a violent end 6 years into his rule, when, according to the English monk and chronicler John of Worcester, Edmund was stabbed and killed in a brawl at Pucklechurch in Gloucestershire, at the feast of St. Augustine on the 26th of May 946. Edmund was then laid to rest at Glastonbury Abbey. Despite his brief 6-year reign, King Edmund's determination to unite England once again, as well as his legal reforms, created the foundation for future Anglo-Saxon kings to thrive, in particular his son Edgar the Peaceful, who would become one of England's greatest kings. Edmund the Magnificent's life may have been tragically cut short, but his influence endured, shaping England for generations to come. Once again, thank you for watching, and if you liked the video or found it informative, please don't forget to hit the like button and consider subscribing. If you would like to know which monarch I will be covering next time, please click the link on the end screen for a full timeline of the kings and queens of England and Great Britain. Or maybe you would like to learn more about King Edmund's predecessor, King Aethelstan, which will also be linked in the end screen. Thank you again for watching, and I'll hopefully see you all next time.